All right.
Hello, Jackie.
Okay, call to order. Hopefully everybody's doing fine today. And just to give the Rotary motto, service above self. Welcome, everyone. I see we have some guests here, and that's always a wonderful thing to happen. What we do next is for our guests, we do stand and we say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, for our guest, we take this time for a moment of silence for all those we've lost. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bill. I'll remind you where we are recording the meeting, and it's wonderful to see some guests with us today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We have Betty Bibbins. Betty, could you please give us a short howdy and introduce yourself?
Betty Bibbins, retired physician. I married the Eastern Shore a couple of years ago, wife of Paul Bibbins. I'm active here in Eastern Shore, Cobb Station Road, Sheraton, East Cape Charles is my home, and it has been, it will continue to be, and happy to be here with y'all today.
And speaking of Paul Bibbins, we'll let you go ahead and speak up, Paul.
Okay, Paul Bibbins, born and reared on the shore, left after high school, was gone for a number of years, and when Betty and I decided to retire, we said, let's move back to the shore where I got my start, and so we are living in the house that I was born in, so it's good to be back home on the shore.
And you're in the room you were born in right now.
And I'm sitting in the room I was actually born in. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, welcome, Paul and Betty. And we hope to see a lot more of you real soon. And we're going to start the meeting with some good news for a change. And Betty, this is probably right up your alley because we're going to have Dr. Paul talk to us a little bit about the better news these days on the whole COVID situation. So Paul, go ahead.
Well, Ed, my welcome to you, Betty and Paul. I've been following COVID pretty closely for the last couple of years since it started, and have been given sort of a weekly report to some friends through a little email I sent out, and also to the club. But I've been, as I've been telling the club the last couple of weeks, COVID in Virginia and on the Eastern Shore peaked a couple of weeks ago and is now falling rapidly. The fall in Virginia and in Virginia Beach in particular has slowed. I expected the fall to drop as quickly as the rise, and it's now got a little sort of bump in it. It's kind of pushed out to the right a bit, probably because of another variant that's an offshoot of Omicron that's no more severe, but it's a little more contagious. That's probably going to cause it to the drop to slow down just a little bit. But it's certainly still dropping quickly, and is expected to continue to drop. we're not quite sure when it'll get down to what most people would consider low levels. But we also know that Omicron is, especially if you've been vaccinated and boosted, it almost always produces only a mild illness or an asymptomatic illness. And at the board meeting, we discovered that 3 different board members have already had the Omicron variant, and they all had mild illnesses. So it's like Dr. Fauci said on TV a couple of weeks ago, that everybody's going to get it. And it's something that most experts now feel that COVID will become just an endemic disease that we'll have to live with, like we do the colds and flu. Anyway, the board discussed today fairly at length, and also last month at the board meeting and meetings afterwards, when we could start meeting in person again. And I'm glad to report, Chuck asked me to go ahead and report it, that the board did vote to start meeting in person again the first Tuesday in March. The projections from most people are that COVID will be down to levels that are similar to what they were in mid-December. By that point, which is when we had our last in-person meeting. The surge started after that, and we decided to hold off on further in-person meetings. But given the fact that we're going to continue to require a full vaccination, that means 2 injections, and strongly recommend the booster, which will decrease your risk of having severe COVID or dying of COVID by tenfold compared to those that didn't have the booster. The people, we're going to require full vaccination to come to the meetings, which means that even if somebody were to get COVID at a meeting, they would almost surely have a very mild illness, like the 3 board members reported at our meeting earlier today. So, and if people aren't comfortable coming yet, that's fine. We're going to augment the meeting with continued Zoom meeting participation allowed. And so we hope everybody who feels comfortable with it will plan to come, and as time goes on, more and more people will feel comfortable with coming to the in-person meetings. So does anybody have any questions for me about COVID?
So it will
Paul,
be
should you elucidate on the other standards that we've talked about?
Yeah, well, those will be distributed among all club members before we meet. But number 1 is it going to require full vaccination. Number 2 is we'll strongly recommend the booster. Number 3, of course, if anybody has symptoms that might remotely be related to COVID, like a cough or a head cold or fever, certainly, we ask them please don't come. If you've been exposed to COVID, it's now pretty clear and accepted recommendation that if you've exposed somebody with known COVID, if you've been vaccinated, then if you're still negative at 5 days, and the rapid test is enough to tell whether you're contagious or not, then you're not going to be contagious. So we ask that if you have had a known exposure to COVID, that you get a test, and self-administered tests should be widely available by early March. Everybody should have gotten some in the mail by then if you ordered them from the government. So we ask that you test before you come, and of course don't come if you're positive. And let's see, what were the others?
We talked about the options on masks And
Yeah, we're gonna have surgical masks available at the entrance. If you want an N95 mask, we didn't really decide to purchase those. We're gonna look into the cost. With surgical masks, I know are much cheaper. And they do offer protection, not as much as the N95, but certainly more than a cloth mask. So right now, I'd say we're going to have surgical masks available if you, and we encourage you to wear them if you're not eating, as long as the levels remain, the transmission levels remain high. We are going to discourage handshaking and encourage fist bumps instead. And when I'm going to have surgical, have hand sanitizer available at the door. So those are the precautions we're going to have. The recommendations I made and the board approved them is that when the level in Northampton County gets to low transmission rate, which is only like 2 cases in the county a week or less, then all of those requirements will be stopped, except for the 2 that involve exposure to known COVID and symptoms of COVID.
yeah. Anybody else have any questions for Paul? I will see to it that the document that Paul prepared with these items on there get distributed out to each one of you, each one of the members. And you can read it over, and if you have any questions, you can direct them to Paul at either meetings or through an email. Paul, would you mind if I put on there your email address if people would have questions?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so on that document that Paul has prepared, I'll put at the end Paul's email address. So if you do have a question or a concern, you can shoot an email direct to Paul. All right, any other questions or concerns? March, first meeting in March, that's what we're shooting for.
The first
Okay.
Tuesday is March
Go ahead.
1st. That's when we're gonna meet in person, March 1st.
If that's the Tuesday, yes, it would be March 1st.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on. Why don't we go ahead, Mehdi, while we have you off mute, and let you talk to us some more about Invisible History.
Well, we are moving along. There are 2 interviews scheduled for this month, and I will be meeting with Melinda sometime later today to talk about starting the Clio entry, a sample entry, so that we can have some idea about what it's going to look like.
Excellent, excellent. There's other members here too that are part of that committee. Do you have anything you want to bring up? Bill Payne, Reggie?
No, I have nothing, but I'll just remind Mehdi that I'm signed up.
Yeah, the 21st.
But I'm going to need a refresher on the protocols because I don't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone that last interview with Tom.
Chuck, I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward. I don't know whether you've made available yet the video interviews you've had, but I'm looking forward to watching those. So
Available on Venmo.
say that again.
It's available for everybody on Venmo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you put in the newsletter a link to how to get to those for the next newsletter? Because I'd like to go in and watch some of those.
Okay.
Okay, great. Again, this is not somebody's name, art raffle, but we're going to let Bill talk about the art raffle.
Yeah, we're making tremendous progress on preparation for the Eastern Shore Art Raffle. Paul has lined up Mark Clark's mother's Mary Ann Clark a reproduction of one of her paintings. Paul, will you explain to us what the reproduction is?
Well, she has a watercolor of it's a view of Main Street, and a view of several of the stores, and she did the original in watercolor, and then she has this high-tech reproduction method that she uses that can create a reproduction of that painting that and she didn't invent it, obviously. She just uses it, and the reproduction looks just like the original, even though it's not handmade by her. And she sold a number of these through Lemon Tree Gallery, and she's willing to donate another one to us. It's done on a new canvas every time. It's not a print. It's some sort of fancy high-tech reproduction. Somebody else may know more about it than I do.
Thank you, Paul. And I finally have chased down, I think, Marty Burgess. I was sent his telephone number just last night, and Buck Dowdy has sent me Danny Dowdy's telephone number, and I will give them a call this afternoon, and we will have just about identified all the art pieces we've targeted. I still am looking for a decoy, a duck decoy, a hand-carved duck decoy, and that decoy that would give us about 13 items, and we're ready to go. The committee decided the term of the raffle will be from March 22nd to April 19th. And the Lemon Tree has volunteered to help us tremendously in promoting it and selling tickets and all that goes along with that. Hey, Bill, am I putting you on the spot if I just asked you to hum a few bars of what the Lemon Tree will do?
They're gonna do a lot. They're gonna do a lot of good stuff. No.
Now we're gonna
Murphy,
have the
that's
drawing.
not you. You're never lost for words.
We're gonna have the drawing there, right?
Yeah, I talked to Mary Ann, and she talked with Miss Shepherd, Clearly Shepherd, and they've pretty much signed up for whatever we want them to do. They'll sell tickets. We can put a poster in their window. They're going to give us a display area. How big and exactly where is not determined just yet. They want to wait and see how many pieces we have and how big they are. They've also decided that we can have the drawing there, and we can do it any way we want. We can set it up as an event if we like. She said that we could do it sort of like a get together where they could have a cash bar and music and anything else we wanted. So I told her we weren't sure how elaborate we were going to go with that, but pretty much Lemon Tree is on board for anything we want to ask them to do. And I've spoken with them a little bit. I haven't nailed it down yet about possibly Lemon Tree Gallery becoming a corporate member going into the new year. I think I'm going to need to talk with Ms. Shepherd a little more about that at some time. But so it's looking pretty good as far as the Lemon Tree being on board with us.
That's great. For the benefit of Paul and Betty Bibbins, what we've done, we touched base with a number of artists and art studios in the two-county area in Eastern Shore, Virginia. And we kind of twisted their arm and got them to donate some artworks, and we're going to raffle those pieces of art off so we have funds to do community work with. And also to give those artists a little bit of recognition, maybe increase their business a little bit. So it's sort of a hand-in-hand thing. We're going to do good in the community because they're doing good in the community. So that's what we're all about. And all the artworks are pretty much related to Eastern Shore scenic type things. So we have artists like Willie Crockett, some pretty well-known artists that are donating. So hopefully maybe you'll buy some tickets and win a prize. Go ahead, David. Go ahead, Dave.
Bill Payne, would you give us an idea of what our fundraising goal is on the project?
We haven't set that yet. It's not going to be another golf cart kind of level, but I think we'll exceed selling crab cakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a matter of, how we get out there and sell and promote. But we certainly have, I think, the foundation of a good campaign. We'll have at least 13 items. So you sell a ticket, you have 13 chances to win. We're going to figure out how we manage that. In fact, I'll remind the members of the committee that at 1:30 today, we're going to have a quick checkpoint on where we are and try to nail down the mechanism for selling the tickets. But Chuck, we owe it all to you. It was your idea, remember? It started and it just grew and grew. And I think we're going to have a handsome a revenue stream. And David, we'll let you know what that goal is once we size the contributions we have in terms of art items.
Well, I'll tell you how that idea kind of popped in my head. And I talked to Jim Rich about this yesterday. I do a lot of historical genealogy work, and I was reading back through the newspapers of the Eastern Shore Press. And lo and behold, there was the obituary for Willie Crockett from about a year ago. And one of the stories in there was Willie Crockett was doing a painting and some Boy Scouts were hanging around and watching him paint. And he was talking to the boys. And when he got done with the painting, he handed the painting to the Boy Scouts and said, "Here, raffle this off and raise some money for your scout troop." And that's Willie Crockett. That's what he did. He did things for the community. He donated things. And the idea kind of hit me, why can't we do that? Kind of hound some artists a little bit, let them donate and help them out as well as help the community out. So that's kind of how that idea popped up into my head. Glad it's working out.
And hopefully we do this and crab cakes.
Yes.
Willing.
Yeah. All right. One other thing we talked about during our board meeting, and we've been kicking around too, is of course we want to look for more members of the club. So one of the things that we'd like to do, I think, is set up a table in Strawberry Plaza, maybe starting in March when the weather starts getting a little nicer. And for a couple of hours with the Rotary banner hanging down the front of the table, have a handful of brochures for the Rotary Club. And as people walk by, if they have an interest, they can stop by and we can talk to them a little bit, hand them a brochure about what Rotary is all about and seeing if we can recruit a member or two out of that. So hopefully we put that together and hopefully we can get the rest of the club to donate an hour or two here to man the table and hand out some brochures and explain what Rotary is all about. More of that to come. One note.
I have a quick question, Chuck. I want to return.
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Art things for just a moment. Is there going to be a flat cost for a raffle ticket? And then how are you going to raffle the individual art pieces at the Lemon Tree, for example?
Alan, we're working on that. And in fact, our meeting this afternoon is to nail that down. There are a couple of approaches.
Okay.
The idea is we want to think about, making it easy to sell, making it attractive, and on the back end, make it easy to manage. But we're working on that. And Alan, you'll be the first to know.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Knowing that there are multiple items, it's not a single golf cart. It's multiple items. How are we handling the drawings and that kind of thing? If you've already purchased a ticket at a flat fee, but you're working on that right now.
Yeah, and you'll be the first to know, Alan.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it is a little complicated, but we're going to get it worked out.
Right. Okay. It's really a great project, I think. So. Okay.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up, I got a message forwarded to me by, I think it was Stan, from the district that altogether the district broke a record for the bell ringing during the Christmas period for Salvation Army. the total was $16,555 that the district raised for bell ringing for Salvation Army. And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, I think well over 3,000 of that was just our club, right?
Bill would know better.
Yeah, Jackie counted the money. How much was it, Jackie?
I was looking for my sheet of paper, but it was close to 4,000.
Close to 4,000.
Yeah, and so out of that 16,000 for the entire district, we raised 25% of that.
Yeah.
So it's a great job by the Rotary Club
Good.
in Cape Charles. Give yourselves a hand. Way to go. Nice job. All right, one of the other big projects we're working on is the Mary Ann Smith Cultural Center, and Bill is sort of the center of that too. Any updates on that, Bill?
Yeah, I've been up there. I know the work that has to be done, and we'll wait for the weather to get a little bit warmer. More to come.
All right, I'm starting to see more and more news items on that center, especially as it relates to the Boys and Girls Club. So
That's why you're getting all the news.
yeah. Okay. All right, why don't we sneak over into Happy Dollars then? And I'm going to kick it off. Because John Berta sent me a message. He couldn't make the meeting today, but he wanted to make a special donation of $25 just because he thinks that Bill Murphy is missing him. So that's what he said. He said, just because Bill Murphy misses me, I need to donate $25.
All right, Chuck, well, listen, I'm not Burtis. I don't have that deep of pockets, but since he thought that much of me, I'll kick in 10 happy dollars if you'll call him back and tell him, yes, I do.
I will tell him that. I will tell him. Go ahead, Bill Payne.
I've got 10 happy dollars because current course and speed, our club is going to have 4 medical doctors and 2 PhDs. There might be more, but 2 that I know of. So I'm just happy, but I'm concerned that I'm going to have to resign from the club.
I have an MBA.
Jackie, nobody cares that you have an MBA.
From the Wharton School.
So $10 for that.
Yeah, I hear you, Bill. I'm starting to feel a little underqualified.
Yeah, we have to go find another club, Joe.
Go ahead, Reggie.
You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, 10 happy dollars. I'm so happy to see Paul and Betty in person in the picture, even though it's not face to face. So 10 happy dollars for you guys joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much for coming and joining us today. All right, any more happy dollars? Go ahead, Jim. Jim Rich. Jim, you're on mute.
You're muted, Jim. We cannot hear you.
Jim, you're muted.
You're on mute, Jim.
I have $10, which
All right.
I would like to put in as the initial scholarship fund for a degree. I'm going to call this the master's degree in advanced Rotary studies. And I would like Bill Payne to be the first recipient of that degree. So he can join all of these scholarly individuals in the club. Round of applause for Bill Payne.
Here.
Bill is our top salesman. I always said Bill could sell a drowning man a 100-pound rock. Okay, any more happy dollars? Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I have 15, 5 for each of my 3 grandkids that I'm going to have to hang out with this weekend, which will be kind of fun.
All right. Hey, how did your swim go?
It went okay, except that the day of the swim, a tornado warning came through and couldn't do the 3.5-mile swim. So we did the preliminary swim the day before, which is about 1.5 miles, give or take.
I bet that broke your heart.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of disappointing, anticlimactic. But the good news is we raised, with all of your help, by the way, a lot of money for a good foundation. So thank you all for your support.
All right, thank you. And by the way, for everybody that may not know, this was down in Tampa Bay, or Tampa Bay area, right?
Yes, the Tampa Bay, right.
Yeah,
And
so
what
it
is
was
the name
down
of the-
south.
What is the name of the event? The
It's
Navy's.
called the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim, and it supports the Navy SEAL Foundation. And it provides support to families who have lost Navy Special Warfare operators in the line of duty. The families are basically supported with things like educational support, scholarships for kids, and things of this nature.
That's an excellent cause. Okay, any more happy dollars? All right. Well, we have a special guest today, and it's Jeff Holland, and he's going to talk to us about the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, the happenings there, the future plans, and what's going on. Jeff, welcome, and you can come off of mute, and I think you have some slides you'd like to put up as well. So Bill, if you could make sure he has the capability of putting his slides up, I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. We appreciate the opportunity. Can everyone hear me okay? You can. Let me
Yeah.
see the thumbs up. Okay,
So
super.
good.
So we thank you for the opportunity. Glad to have Dr. Bibbins and Dr. Bibbins with us today. Very active throughout the community. Blessed to serve with both of these awesome people in Northampton County as well as ashore on various nonprofit initiatives. So we thank the Bibbinses for being with us as well. And also want to mention we talk about the swim in Tampa. We also, the end of the month, have got the Freezing for a Reason. Habitat for Humanity is conducting that in Cape Charles. You all have probably seen the highlights on that, and in hopes that they'll have about 100 dippers and raise substantial dollars. The last time the dip was conducted in Cape Charles in 2020, I think collectively they were able to raise 146,000. So if you see any of the tidbits in that vein and can publicize that well, we appreciate it. My wife is chair of Habitat and thankful for anything that you all can assist with as well. So especially thank Jim who won the golf cart raffle conducted by Habitat. Jim, thank you for donating that golf cart back. So that was certainly gracious of you and super help for Habitat. So we thank you, sir. So let's conduct this the way that we always do. Please stop me if you have questions, if you have comments as we go, instead of waiting until the end. Mr. Huber, I think we have 25 minutes, you said. Is that correct? Okay. So all of you have traveled the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Hey, Jeff, I don't think you heard him. You've got as long as you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll get a lot of thumbs down with that, Bill. So, and Jackie, we appreciate your MBA. Come over and live with the Hollands if you don't see that appreciation from Bill. So we just stop me if you have questions as we go. We look forward to answering those questions. So everyone has traveled across the facility. You know the facility well. We'll bring up some interesting tidbits that you may otherwise be unaware of. Can't get the clicker to work right out of the gate, so let me use the mouse. So imagine having Lucius Kellogg Jr. come and speak to your Rotary Club back in the early 50s and say, hey, you're having to wait on average an hour and a half to 2 hours to get on a ferry in Cape Charles. At the time it transitioned to Chesapeake in 50, the wait times were about the same. And we have an idea that a fixed crossing can be built. What would be your response? A fixed crossing across 17.6 miles of open water? We need to do a urine test before we have our speakers in the future, right? So approximately 70% of those that he went to enrich with the thought, with the concept of having a fixed crossing were very negative. It's no way this could ever be done. And through his leadership, he took that concept and turned it into a reality and served in a volunteer capacity for 35 years for the benefit of the Eastern Shore, the Commonwealth, the Mid-Atlantic region, to complete the coastal corridor that we now know as the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and Tunnel. Many unique facets. Many of you have been out on a tour that we provide from time to time, pre-pandemic, and have been able to see the uniqueness of the construction. And we'll look forward to showing you some unique pics today that you'll hopefully find to be very enjoyable. So in total, the original construction took 42 months. That was from the engineering being completed, from the time the project commenced until the time that the project was completed. Many interesting pictures to share, many interesting stories. When you work in an environment with marine construction, you take projects that you do on land, and it exponentially is that much greater, fraught with risk when you work on the open water. The tidal movements, the winds, the impact of the currents, adjacent mariners, and all of those things make for a very tumultuous condition, such as today. I'm sure most of you have seen HRBT. Unfortunately, one of their subcontractors had a crane that toppled off the barge this morning earlier around 8 o'clock. Thankfully, no one was killed, but not surprising. I mean, that's the nature of the beast in terms of working in a tumultuous environment with marine construction on these large civil construction projects. This is my favorite picture. Seems fairly stoic. This is a survey tower that was built, 9 of them across the Chesapeake Bay, for the purpose of identifying what the alignment was going to be to maximize the frictional resistance of the piles, which were driven to resistance. Typical survey towers, if we were to be surveying properties, say adjacent to your homes, we would be using survey equipment that's 5 to 6 feet tall. In this case, those survey towers were 100 feet tall. And the reason for that was to be able to transverse the curvature of the earth over 17.6 miles, a monumental feat in and of itself to get the project surveyed. So the parallel crossing came to realization as a result of the facility that had been operational from 1964 through 1989. And unfortunately, the fatalities started to mount extensively as a result of everything that occurred on that 2-lane bridge with contraflow, caused traffic stoppages, and traffic stoppages typically resulted many tumultuous accidents, many fatalities that grew to be 70 fatalities over a 30-year span. And anytime that someone had a vehicle that had broken down, the facility needed a repair, anything of a nature with unfortunate driver inadequacies, lack of driver focus, drunk drivers, all of those things were tumultuous with having contraflow in such a tight alignment. So the commissioners approached the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Virginia and said, okay, we've gotten the green light for the original facility. We received no subsidy because of the massive amount of risk. The Commonwealth did not want to provide any backstop on the risk that was assumed by this special purpose political subdivision known as the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, that has a board of commissioners, 11 commissioners, 2 from each county on the shore, 1 from each of the cities Southside Peninsula. Dr. Paul Bibbins is a commissioner representing Northampton County. Again, we appreciate you all allowing Paul to join us today as well. So the commission said we need the exclusive enablement to be able to build the parallel facility. The General Assembly unanimously approved us doing so, but again, did so without providing any funding for the sake of not wanting to take and bear any risk of the construction. So that resulted in the parallel facility being designed. All of the facility to be paralleled except the tunnels. I think everyone around the table realizes the reason for that is we had champagne taste on a beer budget. We were unable to afford having the tunnels built at the same time as the parallel trestles, which we would have very much preferred to have done, having economies of scale, and to be able to have completed those projects at an integral time without the associated construction escalation that we've experienced since the time of the parallel crossing. Be that as it may, budget was 275 million. The project was delivered for 250 million. You all enjoy that parallel crossing today. And now the only 2 miles of the facility that still has contraflow is that of the parallel or the existing tunnels. The parallel thimble tunnel project will parallel one of those two. And then the anticipation would be that the Chesapeake Channel Tunnel would be paralleled with conservative modeling in the late 30s. We're currently working very hard to actually accelerate that project. We have completed all of the environmental work. We've gotten a NEPA green light to build the project. We've completed all the geotechnical work. We have a contract ready. And we want to make sure that we're able to get additional project sourcing before we go through the procurement to fast track the Chesapeake Tunnel project. So the IIJA infrastructure bill being approved in the US is a huge opportunity for us, but I want to underpromise and overdeliver. There's still less than 10% probability that we would be effective in getting that additional funding, given the competition for those monies being so substantial here in the US. These are things that you all know. As you know, the biggest, if we have an accident, an incident in our tunnels, which we do 25 times a year, we have no alternative, such as any other major highway in the Commonwealth. When one is closed, the detour is readily available. When we're closed and if somebody's in Cape Charles wanting to go south, it's going to be an 8.5 to 9 hour detour at best. Age of the existing tunnels is a big one. Currently, our tunnels, hard to believe this year, built in 62 in Orange, Texas, now at the age of 60. Substantial amount of work that you all experience with the delays in the roadway at night. 14 hours of lane closures at night typically are the result of us taking the steel that is oxidizing, is rusting in the walls of the existing tunnel, taking the tile out, taking the concrete off, replacing the steel, going back with new concrete, going back with new tile, and all of the associated repairs therein to help make sure that we can assure that the existing tunnels will last at least another 50 years. Stop there for questions. Any questions? Just a reminder, if you have a question, take it off mute.
Yes, I've got
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
the tunnel depth, it says it's going to be 70 feet. Are you actually going to sink the current tunnels down to that level?
I've got a cross section. I'll speak to that question a little bit later. If that's okay, Mr. Huber.
Okay, thanks.
And Jeff, I have
Any
a
other
question as well. And this is a recent incident. My sister was coming through the tunnel last month and a tractor trailer passed her and other cars going in the opposite lane. Is there a system in place to track or see those things, recordings or anything, videos, or where you can actually see those things and potentially find a way to connect with or contact the perpetrator there?
Yes, sir. There are. The full tunnel is videoed and archived. So your sister in a situation like that, tell her to give us a call. Tell her to give us a call today and provide us the date and time in which she crossed, and we're able to pull up the archive video. We maintain about 90 days of video. And unfortunately, while we think that that's an anomaly of an occurrence, it's not. I mean, we have a pastor who was traveling south to Virginia Beach. She was in a line of 11 vehicles heading south in Thimble Tunnel. An irate driver with a tag from the Northeast went to pass all 11 vehicles in Thimble Tunnel. We were able to track that tag down, swear out a citizen's warrant for arrest. And by all means, please have your sister call us.
She already did, but thank you so much for.
Yes, sir. 331-2960. Alternatively, Bill, Jackie, other folks, part of Rotary, have got my cell phone. So whatever's best for your sister, just have her give us a call.
Hey, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
you were speaking about the 50-year length on the steel and the bridge. What are you going to do after 50 years?
So we'll speak to that when we speak to the cross section, if that's good. Just hold that question, and picture's worth 1,000 words, if you will. Thank you. Remind me of that. All right, so powering through revenue sources, you can see primarily toll revenues, as you know. Lease revenue, you say, well, what do you all lease? We have the only industrial waterfront property in the city of Virginia Beach we bought out of bankruptcy back in 1994. We use that as a marshland site for all of our marine contract work. That property is an excellent investment and has really become a very sought after parcel for long-term lease by the offshore wind energy companies for the purpose of sustaining operations for ops and maintenance of the Dominion Energy offshore wind farm. Investment income as well, not different to the way you all look at what you all do with portfolio management. One thing to work hard for your money, another thing to make your money work hard for you. So altogether, we bring in total around $75 million in revenues, and very unique if you look at that bottom banner. No subsidies from the federal government, state government, or localities for facility ops and maintenance. Were we to be successful in getting some of the funds for the IIJ for Chesapeake Tunnel construction, that would be subsidized for construction purposes to be able to take advantage of the economies of scale right after building the parallel thimble tunnel. North Toll Plaza, you all are very familiar with it. Many people say, why don't you allow high-speed lanes? Many reasons, but the primary reasons are number one, unfortunately, we're having to stop traffic 45 times a year for the purpose of evaluating and inspecting vehicles during weather restrictions. January was, needless to say, a tough one, given the amount of restrictions we had for winds and snow and ice. Thankfully, we are able to maintain a very low fraction when you evaluate safety. We're big on quality control, quality assurance. When you evaluate the accident rate, the injury rate and fatality rate in the US, injury rate is for every 100 million miles driven, there are 77 injuries. On the CBBT, we have over the last 25 years maintained a rate that's about 11. So counterintuitive to what you may otherwise think, we're 1/7 of the injury rate of all roadways in the US, given the constricted lanes, given the massive limited margin for error compared to other facilities. We're able to keep that injury rate at 1/7. Fatality rate is half of that of all national roadways. Unfortunately, fatality rate on our roads are 1.3 fatalities. Over 100 million miles driven here, we're at 0.6. Still not going to settle, have a never settle mantra, and identify ways that we can improve driver safety that will lead to a more effective and safe crossing. So when you look here at the toll plaza I've shared before, and I know that folks sometimes at first think I'm being humorous, I'm not. We'll have drivers that approach the facility southbound, and they'll go in that second lane from the right, and they'll be there talking to a collector, and they'll tell the collector that they want to take the tunnel because they're phobic of bridges. And the reason is some people think it's an option with that toll canopy sign. They think it's Chesapeake Bay Bridge or tunnel. As we all know, it's a combination facility. So that collector will identify to the driver, please pull aside. And we have about 100 to 110 times per month on average, complimentary escort program that's utilized where our utility players, our emergency crew workers will get in the vehicle and will drive that individual across the facility at no additional charge. Why do we do that? To be able to take and emphatically make sure that not only are they safe, but the other folks that they would come across crossing the facility are as safe as possible as well. I'll stop there. Questions on the why we don't have high-speed lanes, questions on weather restrictions, anything? Okay. Easy Pass. I won't spend a lot of time on Easy Pass. Most of you probably are already well aware. One thing that I will say is look at this picture. If you can see where I'm rotating the mouse, Easy Pass Flex. There's a lot of construction going on in the area of coastal Virginia. And once the projects at the high-rise bridge in Chesapeake, the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel are complete, and the extension of the corridor to turn 64 from 4 lanes to 6 lanes are complete from Williamsburg to Richmond, we're going to have Easy Pass Express lanes, okay? There's many reasons for those lanes, but one thing for you all to be aware of, Easy Pass Flex, that allows you, if you have 2 occupants or more in the vehicle, to utilize the express lanes, have less congested wait times, and be able to get in those express lanes where your level of service will be much better without having to pay a toll. If it's just you and you've got a meeting in Richmond and you need to make sure you get there in 2 hours and 45 minutes, you'll be able to get in those express lanes. And typically on an average day with average congestion, getting on at Northampton and staying in the express lane until you get to Newport News, you'll probably pay a toll of approximately $11 or $12. So it's congestion priced based on an algorithm of how much traffic is in the non-express lanes. Easy Pass Flex, when you upgrade your transponder, make sure that you do so by getting a flex tag, because in the future, you'll find that you're probably going to utilize it. So just as a word of advice, if you will, when you go to upgrade your Easy Pass in the future. Any questions on Easy Pass Flex? Okay. Toll benchmark. Commissioner Bibbins and his fellow commission holds us accountable to say, hey, we want to be at an average toll rate or better for marine facilities. And this is a snapshot of the benchmarking that we do. The industry accepted toll rate benchmarking is what is your toll rate per mile. You can see that when you compare the CBBT, a class 1 vehicle without any kind of discount pays 61 cents a mile. How does that compare to facilities that are tunnels? Very favorably. How does that compare to the Maryland Bay Bridge, which is less expensive to operate than a facility with tunnels such as ourselves, because you don't have the mechanically intensive operation of keeping a tunnel operational? How does it compare to the privately operated downtown midtown tunnels? Most people think we're privately. No, we're created by the Commonwealth as a political subdivision with no subsidy. So we compare very favorably because the net toll revenues here are invested back in the infrastructure. Unlike the downtown midtown tunnel, those tolls evaporate amongst the respective shareholding banks in Sweden and in Australia. Well, currently, I think it's Spain. They were just bought out. And then you'll see what the tolls would have continued to be like today, because we're very similar to the Cape May Lewis Ferry, and probably would be very similar in our toll rate structure per mile. That means that typically during the summer, you'd probably be paying a toll rate of $75 to $80. So when you see Commissioner Bibbins, give him a high five and say, you know what, Commissioner Bibbins, we owe you money. We're getting a bargain. So the tractor trailers, you can see they're paying $1.87 a mile. Correspondingly, they would be paying substantially more on other facilities. The commercial operators are all in. They realize that given the time savings and what a ferry would otherwise cost, they're getting across in 20, 22 minutes and paying fairly favorable low rates compared to what they otherwise would be. A lot of pies here in the interest of time from an overall commission stewardship perspective. Kudos to the commission. They've kept the cumulative budget growth here at a minimum. Over the last 10 years, it's been 23.5% in the cumulative, compared to the Commonwealth, which has been 70%. And most people would view the Commonwealth fiscally as being fairly conservative. So that budget increase has been 1/3 of correspondingly what the Commonwealth has been as a gauge. Parallel Thimble Shoal Tunnel Project. You all know where the project is to the west of the existing alignment. This is to say that, hey, projects such as this take a long time from project development to project award to be able to get the project on the ground. You can see it's a lot of dollars. 756 million is what we're investing in this project. The winning team, the Dragados team, the same team that's building the HRBT in a joint venture agreement with Vinci on the HRBT. Vinci is not a partner here at the CBBT. This is what the commission had wanted to be able to do, was to provide an enhanced island that would have approximately double the square footage of the previous island, to have a larger restaurant, have a larger retail area, larger amenities for the traveling public, but realizing that if the costs were too high incrementally, we needed to take care of needs and not wants, which is what ended up resultingly happening, and thus the $756 million parallel tunnel project. How does that compare benchmarking wise to other projects? This project's a mile long tunnel, arguably in the most tumultuous marine environment to build transportation infrastructure in the world, compared to a river tunnel that was awarded 4 years prior to this project at the Elizabeth River. That project is 5/8 of a mile long and cost the Commonwealth $1.2 billion. So I would say commission worked through the process to get a very good value. This project is being constructed with a tunnel boring machine. That tunnel boring machine, the train will be 1.1 miles long by the time that the project is complete. And the tunnel boring machine surfaces at our number 2 island. You can see from this slide, Dragados is the largest tunnel builder for transportation infrastructure in the world. Many things occur here. Picture combine as you're driving the rural secondaries of and even Route 13 of the shore, and you see what a combine does to combine many mechanical variables. Think of the tunnel in the same way. The overall, you've got the rotating cutter head that's 42 feet in exterior diameter. That cutter head is taken, and the combination of 5 different geotechnical layers digging the tunnel. In total, it's going to be 700,000 cubic yards of material that are going to be displaced in the path of where the new tunnel is going, as compared to an immersed tube tunnel option, where we would take and be digging and excavating from the island down to the bay bottom. We would be taking away about 2 million cubic yards of material through that construction methodology. It's very innovative. 70% of the world's tunnels are built with this type of tunneling technology. All of that material is carried through a pressurized screw conveyor through the conveyance system built into the machine, and will be transported to number 1 island. There's a large muck pit that has been completed in construction that can take 4 days worth of excavation material. That excavation material debulks or settles out, and then is going to be loaded on another conveyance system over to a barge on the east side of the island, from where the barge will then be transported to different locations to take care of the excavated tailings. While the excavated tailings are being transported out of the machine, the conveyance system and train system will be bringing what you see here, the segments that are already complete. All the segments, 10,000 segments, are complete for this tunnel. Every 6.5 to 7 feet of north-south direction is a ring of 10 of these segments. These 10 segments weighed together weigh 200,000 pounds, okay? All of the durability of the project is being built with a 100-year life, and correspondingly, we'll give you a few more. By the way, the name of the machine is Chessie. All the public schools on the shore, as well as the public schools south side and peninsula, competed for the winning name. And this young lady, Grace Bentley, a student from Nandua Middle School, her name was chosen, that of Chessie. So she'll be involved intricately throughout the process to stay connected with the project. Here is a, let me stop there before we get into more technical matters. Questions on tunnel project?
I've got one real quick question. Was there any thought given to the material that's being removed being shipped to islands like Tangier Island or Smith Island, who are losing grounds and are interested in setting up jetties and so forth to try and protect the islands?
Okay, thank you for that question. I have to ask the question before I provide the answer. Does anyone here work for the Corps or has worked for the Corps in their career?
No,
Anybody on the call? Anybody that you're aware of?
no.
Okay. So we approached the Corps and we had one of three places for beneficial use for the material. Wallops Island. So if you've never been to Wallops Island, awesome asset for the Commonwealth, for the Eastern Shore, but the island is deteriorating due to the oceanic impact of wave action. Tumultuous weather just takes a dent out of the island. Our anticipation was rock dikes could be built off of the island. This material could be used to fill in, to extend Wallops Island, to take and maximize the elongated life of the island. The northwest side of Tangier Island, as well as points off of Sax's Island in the bay. And the Corps said, we appreciate you coming forward. We were willing to share in the cost by taking and paying for the removal here and have it placed on a barge. So all the Corps would have to do with their associated contract team, take delivery and place the material.
Yeah.
We anticipated it would save about 70% on this project cost, okay? So for Tangier, their cost at the time, they figured it was going to be between $10 to $12 million. We figured this would shave approximately $7 to $9 million of their total project cost. And they came back and they said, hey, we appreciate the intent, but we are unable to get our project permitted in time to be able to take beneficial use of this material. And we anticipate that it would take approximately 4 to 5 years. We were fairly defiant. And we said, wait a second, you're the Corps. You're the permit entity that has oversight of large scale civil permits that are, impacted with tidal wetlands. And they said, still the case, it's going to be 4 to 5 years, and then not sure that we would be able to come up with the extra money that would be necessary. And that very same answer held true on Wallops, held true on Saxon. So we attempted, sir. So then the next thing we did was to say, okay, everybody talks about how important Craney Island is going to be for the Commonwealth and Mid-Atlantic region. That Craney Island's in need of good material. This is excellent material. Let's take it to Craney Island. And the Corps was quick to say, Congress only allows dredge material from within basically the HRBT alignment to be able to build that Craney Island to the extent that it will be that third international terminal post Norfolk, post Portsmouth for the Virginia Port Authority. So anyway, we attempted.
I appreciate that effort. And I know there's a long history of dealing with the federal government on these issues, and it's not a good history. Okay, thanks.
And we thought it was a win and fit. We tried to take the silos down. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jeff, Stan Plowden. Is there any way that we could see Chessie in action, like a visit or a tour?
Yes, sir. So, yes, sir. So once the tunnel, all right, so what happens in progression is contractor is saying sometime this summer, the transport will take place coming from Heron Connect in Germany, down the Rhine to the Netherlands, and then across the Atlantic to Norfolk. Has to go through customs in Norfolk. And then at some point in the fall, it will be phase delivered to number 1 island, where the train will be placed together. And then once the train, the supporting ops for the tunnel boring machine are all together, Heron Connect, the manufacturer, is responsible for the first 60 rings, okay? So when we get into 2023, if the contractor is able to maintain that schedule, correspondingly, what we would expect is that there's going to be 2 10-hour production shifts and a 4-hour maintenance shift, okay? We will accommodate tours during the maintenance shift, working in coordination with the contractors. Contractor's machine, but they realize the importance to the extent practically structured that we are able to allow folks to get out and enjoy being able to walk through the machine itself. Now, that is a gargantuan lift, given the corridors that you have to take and proceed through to be able to get down into the machine. But that overall would be the plan. The bad part, Stan, is that that maintenance shift is from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So
Put me in. I'm
it won't
ready.
be
I'd love to
be
see
as
that.
accommodating as a typical tour, but we look forward to being able to accommodate that in a limited manner, as part of the experience. So history in motion, if you will.
Okay, well, I'm making my bid now. If I can get in there, I'd love to see that. That used to be my field, but I'd love that.
Okay, super, excellent. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so progression will show what's happening by design, and then we've got some pictures. So they build a cofferdam in the alignment of where the machine comes from the island down to the bay bottom. Once that cofferdam is complete, then the cofferdam is filled with engineered fill, and then armoring stone is placed over the cofferdam. And all this occurs before the machine even starts from the island. So uniquely with the original construction, it was just the inverse. You had a massive open trench, 2 million cubic yards of material, and then 300 to 320 foot sections of immersed tube tunnel were placed, all being exposed to the oceanic currents, tides, all being exposed to the tumultuous nature of civil construction at the time. And then the final thing that occurred was the armoring stone was placed to protect the tunnel. In this case, all the protection is placed first, okay? So when we look at our cross section here, to the question that was asked earlier, the contract called for the tunnel ceiling with cover to be able to still accommodate 70 feet of draft. As it turns out, this contractor decided that they would be deeper than that. And the reason that it's motivational for them to do so, the Yorktown Formation is the best layer geotechnically for the tunnel through. So they wanted to get deeper quicker. So they're going to be down lower than what this cross section depicts. So our existing tunnel, we can accommodate negative 58 feet with protection of channel depth at mean low or low water. The new tunnel will be able to accommodate, were it to be needed, somewhere around negative 85 feet at mean low or low water. So the question earlier is what happens in the future with what would occur in the event that we need to provide a deeper channel, okay? So right now we're in the midst of the dredging project for Thimble Channel that will provide negative 55 feet inbound and outbound coming into all of the related ports of the Commonwealth. So we will be fine. We're going through a tunnel hardening project as we speak. That project is approximately $22 million in cost, paid for by the port and the Corps, because this is for marine purposes, not vehicular traffic purposes. Say in another 30 years, hypothetically, that we have a situation where Congress and the Commonwealth approved going down to approximately negative 65 feet with Thimble Channel. We have a design that is already complete where we would take the non-graded sections of the tunnel beneath the shipping channel. We would remove, essentially reverse the original construction, remove those non-graded sections, replace them with graded sections to provide another 10 feet of channel depth. Now, that's never been done in the world, but we feel as though it has a high degree of factor of safety. The question would be, what condition is the graded sections of the tunnel in at that time? And if we find that, based on the other question that was asked, that we have an extensive amount of remediation that's necessary for the graded sections, we would probably take and come back and replace the tunnel from vent building to vent building as opposed to just the non-graded sections to allow greater maritime depths. So I've bunched two answers to two different questions together in that response. Do we have any follow-up questions? Okay. And I've got some slides that show the status of the schedule as far as the dredging as well, in case you're interested. I'm going on Bill's directive that I have all the time. I need as opposed to Mr. Hooper's. Please apologize. Please, please forgive me. So this is pictures that are dated about 30 days. This shows what's going on the islands. So the temporary trestle work is complete. This is a berming hammer that's utilized to take, and I've got a better picture here. This is looking south to north, okay? So the berming hammer goes in and it drills these pile casings, 36-inch in diameter, down through the armoring stone. Contractor decided means and methods. They didn't want to take the risk of removing the stone and expose the islands during major storm events. So they're drilling through the rock, and they have this east side wall that's 80% complete. It goes out about 500 feet north of one island. That's going to be the east side of the cofferdam. You can see here, they're about 50% complete with the west side wall. Fact is, this 36-inch pipe is repurposed pipe from one of the pipeline projects that had been contracted and then was stopped environmentally. So they repurposed that pipe. Once all that pipe is complete, then they're going to take, and you see the clamshell, they'll be going in and removing all of the rock. Now that they've got the protection in, removing all of the rock, they're going to replace that with engineered fill. And once that engineered fill is set and is in the dry, then they will be prepared to launch the tunnel boring machine from number one island heading to the northwest. And the very same thing occurs on the inverse in terms of construction sequence on number two island. You can see that vent building. It's about 1.1 miles north from where this picture is taken, okay? This is a picture from the trestle. The trestle was built, it's a temporary trestle for construction. This contractor decided, instead of working on marine barges with the risk, such as the case unfortunately today with what happened at the HRBT, they're walking all their equipment out on a temporary trestle for the purpose of being able to conduct all of the berm construction in a much safer environment. What's happened? All right, let me stop there. Questions on the marine construction?
What is that engineered fill?
It's about 600 PSI fill. The purpose of that is that they want something that's going to be stable during the tunnel boring and would hold up well. The pressure of the machine is going to be held by jet grout that's been injected into the bottom of the surface that the tunnel boring machine comes in contact with. Jet grout, cementitious material that's been grouted into the earth to help provide stability. The last thing you want is to have any kind of settlement of the machine during construction.
Jeff, I have one other question.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming once the new tunnel is built and you have to start work on the existing tunnel to do the rearrangement of depth and so forth, we're going to be back down to single lane, single tunnel for some period of time again as you work on the existing tunnel. Am I correct on that? And how long would that be?
That's typically how most tunnel projects do it. In our case, we have done this retrofit work that's needed as we go. We do not want to defer maintenance on something as critical as this existing tunnel. For sake, if we have a problem, the new tunnel's not open yet, we're closed to all traffic, right? So we needed to get that work done. We've spent approximately $22 million in conducting that work over the last 6 to 7 years. And that is complete. Now, the tunnel hardening project for maritime purposes, that is going to take place over the next year for the purpose of being able to have that part done prior to the tunnel boring that's going to take place 250 feet to the west. So the project that we're working with in coordination with the Corps and the the stakeholders in the dredging project, such as the port, we need to make sure that we coordinate well without construction interference with the parallel tunnel project. So typically, you're right. In this case, all of that will be done once the new tunnel opens. We'll probably have reason to have maintenance done down in the roadway that otherwise would have required lane closures. But at this time, expect that that would be very abbreviated, probably no greater than 90 days. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yes, sir. And the important thing is that we've got to maintain the flexibility to operate 4 lanes of traffic and 4 lanes of tunnel, or correspondingly all lanes of traffic in 2 lanes in the existing or 2 lanes in the new. Such as 4 months ago, we had an incident, tractor trailer caught fire in the existing. Thankfully, a tractor trailer was able to get out on B trestle, the trestle between the 2 tunnels, and the trailer was, overall was a total loss due to fire. Thankfully, that driver was cognizant enough to get out of the tunnel, or probably we would still be closed given the amount of overall reconstruction that would have to take place in the existing tunnel. So,
Thanks, Jeff.
yes, sir. Okay, so then we transition to what's going on the islands. So, all right, we refer to this the portal or boat section. Massive amount of civil work project in and of itself to get from being at 30 feet of elevation out of the trestles down to where you end up going into the tunnel at grade to be able to get underneath the shipping channel. That's the reason we have tunnels. So the boat section for the new tunnel, you've got the wall systems that are complete. Those wall systems are very sizable. They go down 120 feet into the bay bottom. Each wall section is 9 feet from north south in terms of thickness, I should say width, and each of the pours in and of itself is about 6 feet thick. Substantial amount of ballast for the purpose of serving as a very stable wall system going down into the island and becomes part of the permanent works. Underneath, a massive amount of jet grout was done to make sure that we had no water pressure come up through the bottom of the island during construction. And then you see the mud mats are already poured. And on top of that, we've got substantial 4 to 5 feet of concrete pours that will go on top of that. And then in the finishing wearing surface that will finish up what's going on here on the islands. So this is looking south to north, going down into the cut. So you can see that all of the excavation complete, the struts in place until we have another series of wall pours that will be done. That'd be the finishing surface that customers see as they drive through the tunnel. What we talked about in terms of the flexibility where we have the sheet piles, this area becomes that flexible transition area to get folks that are northbound, and typically they would be going through the existing tunnels long term. We have an accident, we have an incident, we have major maintenance. This area here is where we'll transition traffic to get into the new tunnel, and vice versa, traffic that we need to transition for whatever reason from the existing tunnel over to the southbound trestles. Closer view of, looking as though you're driving going down into the new tunnel. You can see that in this area here, that's where the tunnel boring machine will start. All construction that we conduct is done with steel rebar, number 8 bar for anybody that's interested in the technical makeup. Except this area here, we use fiberglass rebar because the tunnel boring machine is going to be cutting through this area for the launch, and that fiberglass rebar is able to be bored by the tunnel boring machine. You can see a close-up of the struts that are making certain the tunnel walls stay stable while the additional pours are taking place to strengthen this area. Again, we're looking south to north there. Number 2 island, the inverse is occurring. All the walls on number 2 island are complete. Excavation is getting ready to commence to put in the portal or the boat section that becomes the receiving pit during construction for the tunnel boring machine. What you see here, the silos on the east side of the island, they hold the jet grout for the jet grout operation here on number 2 island. You can see that they already have advanced the work on the protective rock that's being placed in the area of where the tunnel boring machine comes up to the surface at number 2 island. We've talked about this before. I won't spend a lot of time on this. This is a new conceptual tunnel. So you can see it's going to have a plenum that will go a full 1.1 miles from 1 island to 2 island. In the event that there is a fire, occupants be able to exit their vehicles, get into a fire safe plenum. If there's a hazardous material spill of any type, get into the plenum. Massive drainage systems. Big difference, this roadway, enhanced full 12-foot travel lanes with 2-foot shoulders. And correspondingly, they are not crowned such as the existing tunnel. They'll be graded upon completion to be able to take and drain all water to the northbound side, 2% from west to east. This shows you, so notice to proceed for construction was back in 2017. Sources of funding that we have, loans or the funds from the general funds that are set aside. True interest costs on our bonds now are about 3.6%. While we had the downturn economically, Commission took full advantage of being able to reset some of our outstanding indebtedness. Most recently in 2021, refinanced $358 million in bonds that resulted in a gross savings of $61 million. So incredible. If we looked at this 20 years ago and said, what's your true interest cost on your tunnel bonds? We would have said approximately 6%. And now the true fixed cost is 3.7%. So who would have thought? Everything's available on our website. Transparency wise, it's important. And we critically invite other tunnel entities, private or public, to come. And we take the silos down and we say, hey, you're learn from us on mistakes that we've made, things we've done different, etc. The DOT team did that extensively. Ultimately, they said they were going to go with the immersed tube tunnel. We said, hey, given the technologies, given the effectiveness, given the sustainability, we strongly recommend doing a bifurcated procurement that would allow for an immersed solution or a board solution. They said, hey, that's double the work. We said it's worth it because you just don't know who's going to be the hungriest at the time that you're in the market. And so while they came in the door and said, no way we would ever do that, they ended up taking our contract docs and they did the very same thing, and resultingly have ended up with that 11-mile project being awarded to a team that's going to bore the tunnels and then do the 11 miles of approach work coming into Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, which will broaden that from being 4 lanes to being 8 lanes. Join our Project Connect, go on the website, sign up. We send out the updated emails on how things are going, what the updates are. And this is the last thing we'll discuss. As I mentioned, this shows the phases of the dredging project. When you're crossing the facility, you're going to see a massive amount of dredge work going on. And you can see the cost in total, all that added together is $700 million worth of work for the purpose of making certain that we maintain that competitive advantage of having the deepest channels on the East Coast. You know, there's a lot of detail there. This alone could take 45 minutes to describe. I'll just stop and say, does anybody have any questions on any of the phasing related to the deepening project?
Yeah, Jeff, once you get down there and you're, you know, going at it, what's the nature of that material? I know it's not bedrock, but what is it?
Okay, so are you talking about for the dredging project? Are you talking about for the tunnel project?
Tunnel.
Talking about both.
Tunnel.
Okay, tunnel is 5 different layers. You've got muds, which is primarily silty combinations of different soils. Then you get into more of the sand, and then below the sand, you have the Yorktown Formation. Altogether, there's 5 different types that contract teams would not have bid this project were they not to know what that constituted. So what we did is we went in and we did cone penetration tests and took cores every 50 feet along the tunnel alignment, just to make sure folks knew what they had to take and prepare for in terms of monetization of risk. So one island is strong, good for tunneling. 2 islands okay for tunneling, but there's a substantial amount of organic matter that has to be solidified, some excavated, other grouted extensively to assure that there's no settlement during the tunnel boring. Bill, you didn't ask for it, but I'll say for the dredging, interestingly enough, when you look at that Thimble Shoal green line for that phasing of the Thimble Shoal dredging, that's to the basically to the east and west of ourselves. Everything to the west is unable to be utilized for beach nourishment. Everything to the east of us is good quality, clean sands that are going to be repurposed for beach nourishment. So it's kind of interesting, right? We're right there at the demarcation of what's good and what's not. So that's not, they'll take, and they've got a section 103 permit that they've got approval for to be able to put that material on a barge, take it out in the ocean and dump it. And getting to the point earlier, Mr. Huber mentioned, it's a shame because there's so much need for good material that can be used for replenishment in our area alone. And unless it's inside of that HRBT and goes to Craney Island, if it's between HRBT and ourselves, it's heading to the ocean. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir. And this shows the tunnel hardening project. You can see the existing bay bottom line. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking propulsion dredging and having all of the existing cover over the existing tunnel that's taken and in an outgoing tide is moved to the east of the facility. And then we're going to be placing 1,200 feet of a rock cover over the existing tunnel prior to the dredging on each side of Thimble Tunnel occurring. We want to have that hardening complete. The reason for this is with deeper drafts, our major risk becomes any kind of anchor drag going over the existing tunnel. We have insurance that would cover the beginning of repairs into any kind of third-party remediation takes place. We have $225 million of catastrophic coverage for that purpose. But yet, if we can prevent it, we want to prevent it as opposed to having to deal with it after the fact. So this project, as I mentioned earlier, to take 1,200 feet of rock, as you can see, 3 feet thick, and it's going to be 150 feet wide, 75 feet to the east and west of the center line of the tunnel, and have to do so very carefully to make certain that any of the placement does not impact the existing cover of the tunnel. So I don't tell you this to cause you any concern as you're going through Thimble Tunnel, but I tell you this just to relay some of the things that you may otherwise be unaware of as it relates to some of these projects going on.
Jeff, I'm assuming,
go ahead.
I'm assuming, possibly wrong, but you have a single boring machine, so you're going to do one tunnel at a time. As far as the opening goes, are you going to complete one tunnel, then open it? Or are you going to wait till both and the roadway is completed before you open that complete section?
So the parallel tunnel project is 1 2-lane tunnel being constructed. The existing tunnel becomes the northbound tunnel. The new tunnel becomes the southbound. So the Chesapeake Channel Tunnel, as we know, limited to just the two total lanes today. We anticipate paralleling that. If we're able to advance that project, that tunnel boring machine that we use for Thimble would be able to be utilized for Chesapeake. And that's the reason we're trying to advance this project, to leverage those economies of scale, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, that's another cross section of which we've already discussed. And LED lights, how do you all like them in the tunnel? Thumbs up?
I
thumbs
like
down?
it. I like it.
Good.
Lot better.
Good. So, overall better for drivers, safer operating, and the great thing is lower costs. So you can
Yeah.
see the overall cost savings. And correspondingly, when we evaluate transparency, warnings, etc., we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got the website, and the procurement opportunities, the employment opportunities, all of it is available. So a lot of information. I apologize for going over. What other questions do we have today?
Hey, Jeff,
Yes, sir.
am I gonna be able to play my Sirius radio going through there?
So who asked that question? I didn't see. Was that Stan?
That was Stan, yeah.
Okay, so Stan, we can, while we're not subsidized by any government, we can be subsidized by Stan, okay? For us to be able to take and have the repeating system to provide you AM, FM, or alternatively satellite radio, we need $750,000, sir.
Come on, Stan, you can cough that up.
All right, I'll give you the first dollar.
So we
Get the rest from Bill Payne.
okay, so we again, we're needs not wants, and that want which we evaluated, I say 750, it was $600,000, and that was 15 years ago. That price tag is probably well over $1 million now. One thing I will say is we're constantly surprised with technological innovation. So we're currently in process of working with Verizon Wireless and AT&T. Have got the cell service through the tunnels across the facility. We're currently working with Dish Network. Okay, that's not an error. Dish Network is now going to have cell communications across the facility. I was even unaware that they're trying to create a network across the US. And also working with Sprint and help me out, they merged with T-Mobile. Yeah, so they're putting in a system now, and we lease that out. So the lease value of those are right around 110,000 per year. Now there may in fact be some sort of connection with the Dish Network stand where you may be able to get satellite radio. Stay tuned. I'm not aware of that at this time.
Or you can watch TV while you're driving across the tunnel and bridge.
Oh yeah, that's always a great spot.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, you both are great candidates for our escort program. We won't charge you, but you all will be riding while you watch your TV. So anytime you go to cross, you get up with me ahead of time.
Not a problem.
Hey,
Any
Jeff.
other
Jeff,
questions?
It's Dave Kabler. How are you, Jeff?
Hey, Dave, long time no talk. I'm doing well.
Listen, have you ever ridden a motorcycle through those tunnels?
I don't ride motorcycles.
Well, let me just tell you, it's a hairy experience. What do you do about motorcycle safety in the tunnels when you got dripping oil coming from vehicles and falling on the road surface? And motorcyclists are very scared about that kind of thing. So what have you got going on that?
When's the last time you've ridden through, Dave?
Oh man, it was years ago. I sold my motorcycle, but I'll never forget how frightening it was to ride between the tire tracks of normal cars, and where you know the surface is slippery and you can tell.
So one of the things that we did is, and I should have mentioned this earlier, I appreciate the question, Dave. So when COVID hit, we had traffic that fell off by 70% in April 2020. So Paul and the fellow commissioners had a long-term project. They anticipated that they would be able to have all of the trestles and the tunnels that would be repaved with new wearing surfaces between 2020 and 2024. Well, because traffic was so much less, that is a huge variable of risk that's taken out of the equation for any kind of resurfacing. So we fast tracked that project and we were able to get it done in 18 months. So what we hear from everyone is that the riding surface is substantially better than it's ever been. And so I'm hopeful that that would be the case. We probably got 25 to 30 of our employees who ride motorcycles. They've been complimentary, but that may not be as objective because they work with us, right? So I'm hopeful that most of those motorcycle enthusiasts would say that it is much safer because of the riding surface being brand new. As far as the oils, as far as the gas, that's not so much a concern now in the tunnels as it is with what we're doing in flushing the toll lanes. Traffic comes to a stop. There's a substantial, and you probably remember that, Dave, substantial amount of the, those petroleum type concerns around the toll plazas. So we're trying to keep those surfaces as safe as they possibly can be as well.
Thank
You
you,
know,
Jeff.
I can honestly say I have never seen a motorcycle in the bridge tunnel, just me personally. All right, any other questions for Jeff? Jeff, to me, this was a very interesting discussion. I really appreciate the detail you laid out for us. And of course, we're wishing safety for everybody that works on that, and understand your focus on the finances, because this is a state road, not an interstate road. So you're dealing with more with the states, and really the federal government has little to nothing to do with this. So I'm sure that's a challenge as well. But thank you very much for bringing the updates to us. Very educational. And we will probably have you back again as this progresses along.
Super. Thank you for the opportunity. Y'all be
Okay.
safe and have a blessed week.
You too. And for everybody else, we ran a little bit over, but thanks for sticking around. And thank you very much for participating today, and particularly to our two guests. Thanks, everyone. And we're going to do right now the closeout, and we're going to do the four-way test for the Rotary. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And this week, I'm not going to forget it, because we have a number five, and we have the main man who always does number five. Stan.
Will we have some fun?
You bet we will.
All right.
So long, everybody. Bill Payne, do we need to stick around for a different meeting here?
No, I don't think so.
Bill, you're on mute. Bill Payne, is there a follow-up meeting on this art auction?
Oh, I was on mute. Not today. We'll do it in a week, but I'll send
Okay.
up a summary of where we are because I think we're pretty much zoomed out. We've been going at it since 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate it, Bill. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for a great meeting, y'all. Nice seeing you.
Thank you. Everybody have a great week.